Welcome to the BS Your Way Through Life show. Super excited for today. Today, we would like to welcome Rebekah Higgs. She is the DIY mom. She lives in Canada. She's a designer, revenator, and true embodiment of resilience and creativity. From overcoming the challenges of being a broke single mom to building her dream life in a mortgage-free 2 million Barbie dream house, Rebekah is a shining example of a grit and determination. She's also the creator and starter of the hit show DIY Mom, which is very entertaining. Go watch that. Streaming, so it has full seasons. How many seasons does it have, Rebekah?
Has 5 seasons.
5 seasons. Okay, there's 5 seasons. It's amazing. And you can watch that on YouTube. Also, is it just featured on YouTube currently?
It's on Binge TV as well. So if you
Okay,
go to
binge TV.
try binge.tv and all 5 seasons
Wonderful.
are there.
Okay, awesome. She has over 150,000 fans who share her love for home decor and empowering women in businesses. Welcome, Rebekah Higgs.
Thank you so much for having me.
So
It's great to be here. Love to
glad.
connect with the audience too. So I really appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you for taking the time to bless my show with your presence. All right, Rebekah, take us into your story. What was the moment that changed everything? The realization, the struggles, or the breakthrough that finally gave you like the push? What got you to be the DIY mom? Tell us your story. Take us on your journey.
I guess it really had to start once I became a mom because I had an unexpected pregnancy and I had a baby, and then I was looking to what was the next chapter of my life going to be? What was I going to do with this responsibility that I now had to take care of this child? And before that, I had lived a very self-centered life as an artist, as a musician, in my 20s. And it really all just changed once I had a baby. So the circumstances around my life just needed to become something else. I needed stability. I needed to have safe shelter, a safe home for my daughter. And I was able to move back to Nova Scotia, my homeland, after a very tumultuous, difficult year, or actually almost 2 years, because pregnancy was really hard for me as well as the first year of my daughter's life. And then once I got back to Halifax, it was time to start fresh and think of a new career for myself. And through a series of events of becoming involved in the film industry here in Halifax, and then investigating further into marketing and what my true calling might be, I came up with the concept of DIY Mom as a brand that would embody me as a single mother, as a designer, as a home renovator, and as a TV personality that I would be able to share these gifts that I had developed over the course of my life, a very creative life, full of decorating and interior homes on all kinds of different budgets, and really taking that concept of home renovation on a single mom budget and turning it into that concept that I came up with for the TV show DIY Mom. So through a series of exciting and challenging events over the course of my daughter's first 3 or 4 years of her life, I was given this opportunity to start my own TV show. And I just really took it from there and just walked through doors that were opening for me and just seeing what would happen when I just put a lot of time, effort, and my energy into doing something of this magnitude. And DIY Mom was born.
That's beautiful. And I'm sure like there was some, fear along the way, but instead of like, when opportunities open up, there's this like resistance inside of us that's just like, scary, right? But like the fact that let's just do this, let's see what happens. That's beautiful because a lot of people struggle with that. They hold back or they, stop themselves from being able to, progress forward because, they let fear be the driver of their decisions as opposed to you know, just go for it.
Absolutely. Yes. There's a lot of ways that we get held back by ourselves or by the opinions of others. And that was a big challenge in the first few years of DIY Mom. I was met with a lot of no's, a lot of people saying that DIY Mom was not a good idea. And so I had to take it into my own hands and make it happen for myself. So that's when I started to produce my own content, to videotape the small renovations and improvements I was doing around my home, edit them and share them with the world. And just over the course of, 6 months or so of sharing that content that I was making, TV came knocking at my door and said, "Do you want to turn this little web series that you've been doing into a TV show for our channel?" And so that's when I became a producer, I became a show writer, and all these other things that came under the umbrella of DIY Mom. And that's when I started my production company, Matriarch. And DIY Mom is really an umbrella underneath the Matriarch Productions and Design Company.
That's beautiful. Can you give us more? And I want you to give us more on the whole matriarch thing too. But
Sure.
before you do that, I love how, people told you no, and it's not a good idea. But then now it's amazing, right? And now the reach it's getting. So it's just like how many, throughout history, how many times people have been told, no, that's not a good idea. And it became the best thing ever, right? So it's just like we can't just listen to people when they say it's not a good idea.
I
Well,
think quite often people want to push you towards safety and security. So they're
yes,
like,
yes,
maybe it'd be better for you to be employed by somebody else or to
right.
work for a different company. And I did have all kinds of skills in film production. I was doing hair, makeup, wardrobe, art department, set decorating, all these things behind the scene. But I was just so passionate about doing something bigger and being the face of a brand. And also I really wanted to create stability for myself that wasn't dependent on being employed by somebody else. I really felt like I'm a much better entrepreneur than I am an employee. And so when it came to time to put the hard work in and to grind at it, I was just so motivated because it was for me, it was for my daughter, it was for our
Right.
family. And I didn't have any fallback plans. I didn't have any other options. So I had to really spend a lot of time and be very diligent about putting out excellent content and excellent material. And we're lucky here in Canada because we have um, Access TV that is sponsored by Canadian networks where they have to put so much money back into developing Canadian talent. And so that's that pool that I was able to draw from. I was getting money,
Wow.
this pool that was for developing talent, and I was leveraging that money to create the production. And then I was leveraging a home renovation home mortgage to do the renovations for the TV show. So it really became a great business model that I created. I was bringing in brands to work with me so that they were also supporting my income. And then I had the production, and then I also had the social media side of things. So yeah, so it became this full encompassing beast that kind of took off and kept me going, but it also helped me to thrive and to bring in the money I needed to sustain our life and to build our life.
And I'm sure the question's on everyone's mind. How did you do this being a mom? Like, I mean, we know how much time children take, right? Like,
Yes.
they take so much time and they require so much. How did you make it simple for yourself to be able to do the quality work and yet still be a quality mom?
Yeah, definitely have some regrets around perhaps like my parenting strategies over the course of my daughter's
Oh,
early
we
life.
all.
I was actually an infant child nanny in Toronto, so I was really good with young children and toddlers, and I had read all the research about attachment parenting.
Then you have
And
your own, and it's like, what am I doing?
but then once I was on my own, I was like, get this baby off of me. I need some time to myself. I almost became a detachment parenter instead of an attachment parenter, which I had done all this research on. So I certainly think that my daughter might have been better off if she didn't have such a gung-ho mother that was so entrepreneurial. But we made it work for us. I got her into a daycare when she was about 16, 17 months part-time, and then eventually a full-time spot. And then when I was building my career and becoming a producer of the TV show and just my life was becoming very busy, I actually started to hire babysitters in the neighborhood, young girls that were that showed leadership potential or initiative. And I would get them to come when Lennon wasn't at home and just help me organize the house, help me do some grocery shopping, do some laundry, the things that I would have had time to do if I wasn't so busy building this DIY mom brand. So I really did bring in a lot of help, which was great. I also had entrepreneurial parents that understood you have to take a lot of risk to get ahead. And my parents were generous enough to um, at least support me in co-signing for a mortgage that would support me in my dream. So I was able to buy my first house for $100,000 under asking, and I was able to
Wow.
put that money back into the renovations of the house. And I really didn't see a lot of the fruits of my work until would sell the house. So down the road, like in 3 years, I
Right.
would sell the house and then I would make the money and then I would leverage that money to do another project. So over
Right.
the course of the 5 seasons of DIY Mom, I did two houses, and then I've moved into my third one, which I started renovating at the end of season 5 of DIY Mom. And that's currently where we're living now, which is one of the best neighborhoods in my hometown, actually on one street over from the street that I grew up in as a child, thinking I would never ever be able to afford to live in this area or neighborhood. And I'm surrounded by doctors and lawyers, and I'm just this single mom entrepreneur that was able to work her way and climb up that real estate ladder in many regards by being a creative force.
That's beautiful. And speaking to the mothers out there who like a guilt is associated with, well, I feel driven to do this, but at the same time, there's always guilt that comes with, yeah, but am I being, a present enough mom and all that jazz? But this is the thing too, is like it's important for us to do that. Like we all have God-given talents and we can be an inspiration to others, but not just to others, but like we show our kids this, see how capable I am. You can be this capable too. Like you're being an example to your daughter. You can be this is amazing as well. And I think
I've
that's
been having this
beautiful.
sort of discussion with my family over the last couple of years about how we speak, what we speak into our children's lives in terms of what they're going to be when they're growing up, when they
Yeah.
grow up. You know, this debate about women CEOs and how there are certain men out there in the world that say, oh, women don't want to be CEOs. And that's why there's only 5% CEOs in the world. And my argument is that it's like, well, women aren't really raised from the time that they're little saying, with somebody speaking into their life every week saying, you're going to be a CEO when you
Yeah,
grow up.
it's true. Yeah.
So
It's
we are just taught to be what we are encouraged to be. A lot of girls are encouraged to be teachers and nurses, and there's nothing wrong with that.
no,
But
I
if
know.
you're encouraged to be a servant and a giver and a helper and a healer, then that is more likely what you're going to be instead of like, the boss of a corporation or running your own company. So I recognize that my daughter is very much motivated by power and she really loves, oh, my little puppy's coming in here to
Oh,
get
yay, puppy. Hello, puppy.
and so she can often push back on authority and she can be very challenging when it comes to doing homework the way it's prescribed. Like you have to do the thing that you have to do your math this way, the way that the school is showing you how to do
Right,
them.
right.
So she'll come up with her own strategies for math, which is great, but then I will tell her, well, the teacher really wants you to show your work and explain how you did the work that so he can see that you understood what he's teaching you in class. And she'll refuse, she'll push back. And I said to her, I know when you grow up, you want to be the boss. You want to run a big company. And one of the things that you need to know when you're the boss is what everybody else's job is and how they're supposed to do their job. And you don't have to be the best at every job, but you do need to know enough to speak competently about it. So that's why you need to know how to do this math problem this way so that when you have employees, you can tell them how they're supposed to do their job and then just kind of walk away. And
Very
now
good.
she's doing the math problems the way that the school told her to do it. But
You needed to hear the logic behind it.
yeah, and that's the thing with challenging children or children that have that kind of that a little bit of that personality. Sometimes they just need to understand the why behind the ask,
Yeah.
and they can get behind it, but they're just not going to be blind followers.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I love that. And it's so wonderful that you can, you can be able to like explain that to your daughter and help her to understand. And it's beautiful that you are such an example of like what she can be someday. And doesn't have to be exactly what you are, but in her own way, in her own talent, she can become amazing. And
Yeah.
I think that's great. So, okay. I know that resilience has clearly played a major role in your journey. Can you share the mindset shift, mindset, gosh, I'll speak, I promise. Mindset shifts, there we go, or habits that helped you push through the toughest moments. Like, what
Mhm.
was it that helped you get through the hard times? Because, like, just watching the episodes on your DIY, I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel overwhelmed for her. How did you get through like all of your challenges?
Yeah.
What was your
Okay.
biggest?
So I would say my overarching theme in life has been make it happen. And that was the mantra that I was raised with. I remember my dad dropping us off to school in the morning and saying, make it happen before we left the car. And even as a young artist, when I was a musician, I had this deeper understanding that no one was going to pluck me out of a crowd and make me a star. That if I believed in something, if I wanted something, if I was passionate about my art, that I had to make it happen for myself. I couldn't rely on somebody else to make my dreams happen. I had to make my own damn dreams happen.
That's right.
And so that make it happen mantra really carried me through in my adult journey because every step along the way, I realized it really comes back to me. I am responsible. And in the same way that, we are responsible for how we react to a situation and our emotions, and as a mother, it being an example of like calmness and emotional resilience to our children so that they can model that. It's the same thing in terms of being an entrepreneur. I just had to continue to push for that vision. And sometimes I would write it on the wall, I would write it on the chalkboard, I would build a vision just to keep myself motivated. But other times along the journey, when things felt overwhelming or I was met with deeper challenges in my relationships, um, I had to really go back to understanding my gut and that inner authority because I had been in some very challenging partner relationships that um, really beat down my confidence in myself. And I started to kind of double think about everything. Sorry. I started to you know, rethink things and just be confused about what my choices because I was being gaslit and told like I don't make good decisions and I have a bad track record and I'm afraid of commitment and whatnot. And so I had to do the work with a therapist to get my inner voice back and to trust my gut instinct again. And when I did come to terms with realizing actually what I wanted in life in terms of my relationship that I was in, that same gut instinct, that same drive that I have, that same ability I have to recognize what is good and what is not good for me is the same thing that helped me to push through all the challenges on the TV show and the renovations and come out the other side a bit better for it. And every lesson along the way, every challenge, every difficult situation has been my education. It's been how I learned all the skills and the abilities that I have because I gave myself that self-education. I did all these renovations and every one I learned something new in, and I took what I learned onto the next project and I tried as best as I could to not make the same mistakes twice. So if I learned my lesson once, to take that on to the next one. And I think it's just an accumulation of life experience and a willingness to take risk and a longing to have an adventurous and a fun life. And then also not taking yourself too seriously and being okay to mess up, make mistakes. And in my case, do it on camera and just have a laugh about it.
That's right. And, not worry about being too perfect. We're all human. We all have life. Like I have children, and sometimes I'll be in the middle of podcasting and they'll walk in,
Yeah.
like, hey, that's happening right now. But yeah. So that's beautiful. I think not putting too much pressure on ourselves is key. Is like, okay, I'm just gonna do my best, and you know, everything
And
else.
when I
Yeah.
was building my career, I always had some kind of supplementary income. So whether it was going back to work on shoots where I was doing hair, makeup, wardrobes, art department, set decorating, or I also, in season 2 of DIY Mom, I renovated an apartment and turned it into an Airbnb. And so I had this little passive income from my short-term rental that really helped to support me in times where the well was dry.
Yeah. Yes, that's perfect. You had a good fallback. So like let's break this down just a little bit if you don't mind.
Sure.
So like for people out there who are trying to, especially moms and especially single moms, right, that are out there that are they're trying to make something happen. They feel driven to do something, right? And then but then they have, the children, and then they have so how how can they make it simple enough? What can they do to make things easier or simple so that they can be able to do both? They can be able to you know, like what is it? Like set times, set days, and then that you do it. Like how can you make things simple? Because like there's social media and there's all these, list of things that people feel like they have to do, and it feels overwhelming. How can they simplify to make
Yeah.
it happen? What was
One great strategy or skill that I use is blocking out times to do certain things.
perfect?
And also knowing that I'm going to be the most productive in the morning. So in the morning is a great time for me to do things like emails and spreadsheets and budgeting and then the afternoon is more of a creative time. So the afternoon is when I can dream, scheme, think of plan, do my mood boards, do the creative things, maybe work on some social media content or a bit of editing. So
Yeah.
trying to break up your day that way too. Do the hard stuff first early in the morning and then do the creative things later on in the day. When Lennon was a baby, I used to put her to bed and then I would work again. So I would put her to bed and then I would edit the videos between like 7:30 and 10:30 at night. So that was I was just constantly working. I was certainly, if I had one addiction in life, it would be work, a workaholic.
Right.
But the other big thing that happened to me in my life was after I got out of that abusive relationship, I didn't date for 3 years. I didn't go on a single date. I didn't I didn't have any men in my life, and therefore that freed up a lot of time. So I wasn't trying to manage another emotional relationship. I wasn't
Right.
trying to go out on dates or meet people. And that 3 years of my life, my career just took off. And it
Right.
wasn't until 3 years after breaking up and leaving the situation that my daughter said to me, Mom, you're gonna have to start dating again so that my kids can have a grandfather.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I started to go out and date again.
Well,
But she said that to
that's
me.
so cute. I love it. But it's really hard though, because like once you've been in an abusive relationship, it's really hard to trust again. And I'm sure
Mhm.
that was really hard for you. But the fact that you were able to come out of that was amazing.
Yeah, and I did one of the internal family systems practices that I did with my therapist was really to help me trust that I wouldn't pick somebody like that again.
Yes.
And I also think that giving myself that time, that space, the 3 years was really important just to kind of shed off that energy that can
Yeah.
be an abuser into my life. I
Yeah.
think if you are getting out of an abusive relationship, you're just ripe for the plucking for somebody else to take you
Oh,
into their,
100%
yeah.
because
They
the
can
thing
sense
is,
it, they can feel it.
yeah,
You're
they
getting
can
off
feel
like this
it.
energy. And
Yeah.
so really wanted to get rid of all that negative energy around me in terms of negative relationship. And I just reprioritized the type of person that I wanted to bring into my life. And so I'm just so grateful and happy now that the man that I'm with, my partner that I'm building a house with, is a feminist and he's a proud feminist. And I think that's just such an important trait
That's
to look for in a man. If they don't know what a feminist is or they're not encouraging of you being an entrepreneur or like owning your own success or
right.
being out there in the world and representing yourself fully, it's probably going to hold you back. And so I'm just really
Exactly.
that I don't have somebody that's trying to hold me back in any way. He's like, I want you to have your dreams.
I
Go.
love that. That's how my husband is. That's why, like, he's all about, like, yeah, you do that, go for it. He's super supportive. Like, you want to marry someone who supports you. That doesn't mean they have to love everything you do, but they respect and support you in the things that you do and you want to do. And that is
Absolutely.
so key in a healthy relationship.
Yes.
And I think, like, too, with like people who are abusive in their relationship, that how and why people keep going back to an abuser, or why they end up choosing someone else, is because they're really good at making you feel like you're not enough and this is all you deserve.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like, good luck.
Uh-huh.
I can't tell you how many times I heard, like, good luck trying to find somebody else that'll put up with your bullshit,
I
like
know, right? That's
words
not
that
okay.
are meant to make you feel lesser than, or like there's something truly wrong with me. And I remember doing EMDR work with a practitioner, that where my story that I had been telling myself was that I am permanently damaged. There's something wrong with me that I'll never be able to get over. And through the EMDR work, the opposite of that, discovering that I am healthy, that I'm good, was came out through those sessions. And honestly, after those sessions, I just never thought those thoughts, those intrusive thoughts of being like permanently damaged, I'm never going to be okay, I'm never going to get over this thing that happened to me, really went away. um, but absolutely, they are there to try to break you down and make you feel completely dependent on them, because the majority of time they can't stand themselves. They're terrified to be alone,
Yep.
because the person that they hate the most in this world is themselves.
Yeah.
Oh my, I just realized I forgot to plug my mic in. Here,
But I
let me
hear
plug
you
my mic
just
in.
fine.
You can hear me just fine? Okay, well, let me plug
Yeah.
my just in case.
Go right ahead. Whatever you got to do.
Okay.
In the
I
meantime,
have,
to all the women out there, you are enough always, just like
yes,
you are right now. You're enough.
there. Okay, let me see. Just gonna come up. MacBook speaker.
Yeah, it sounds like your mic is like the mic you're using right now. It sounds great.
I did this. Oh, there we go. Now you're going to hear me really clearly. I'm so
It was so
sorry.
good. No, it's all right. I'm so glad.
This microphone in front of me the whole time and it's not plugged in. Okay.
Woo! I'm glad you can hear me, because sometimes I wonder if my mic is on.
Yeah, it was certain I think that the experience that I had in an abusive relationship just made me so much more empathetic towards other women that are going through things far worse than I did. And just realizing that there's lots of reasons why people can't leave. And there's lots of reasons why people are scared to leave, or don't have the opportunity to leave, or there's this coercive control that's keeping them
Mm.
in the home, or they don't have the financial support or a family or anybody else in their life that they can lean on, and so therefore they have to stay. um, so I am grateful for those experiences that I had, because it's made me a much more well-rounded, wholehearted person, because
Yeah.
I know what the other side looks like. So I can really, you know, and
What would
I can really I can feel for those women now. So,
yeah.
I'm grateful for those
What would you
experiences.
say to those women if you had the opportunity to, like, stand in front of them right now and you had the opportunity to say whatever? What would you say to them?
I would say to start making a plan, an exit strategy. Get your ducks in a row. Get a get start like secretly saving some money, or building a support network outside of the home. And when you do leave, don't go ever go back, because it's always that I'll just go back one more time. And then that's when, they take it into their own hands to not let you ever leave again.
Yep.
I would also say that for people who are freshly into a relationship, just try to recognize the danger and warning signs early. I think I did see a lot of red flags early on within the first 3 to 6 months of the relationship. But after about 6 months, when I really started to think like, I don't think I want to be with this person anymore. I he made it so impossible for me to leave. He tried every trick in the book, and it took me until 3 years into the relationship to actually get out. And it wasn't until I realized that he's never going to let me leave. If I want to go, I just have to go. And I one afternoon, he was out actually at the start of COVID. We were all trapped in our house. My car was parked in the driveway. I hadn't left my house in 6 weeks. And he had gone on an errand. Here in Canada, they were like, one person from the house go out and do the errands and everybody
Yeah.
stays at home. So I ended up being the one kind of staying at home with the kids. And he went out to do a long errand. And I just thought, maybe I'll just pull my car out of the driveway so I can access if I needed to. And I parked it in the front. And then I just thought, well, maybe I should pack a bag and put a suitcase in the back of the car just in case. And that way, if I ever needed to leave, I'm not going to be drawing attention to myself.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put a bag in there for Lennon too. And then I was like, what if this is my only chance to leave? I mean, it's been 6 weeks of being trapped in this house with this guy. Maybe this is this is the only time I'm ever going to have to leave. So then I got my daughter and I got into the car and I didn't know where I was going. If I turned right, I was going to the shelter. If I turned left, I was going to my family. And at this point, my family didn't really know what was going on
Right.
because you want to protect the relationship when you're in it, and you don't want your friends
Mhm.
and family to dislike
Yep.
somebody. They're going to be in your life, so you kind of keep these things private.
Hmm.
And then when I decided to go left, I was bringing my family into the situation, and then there was no real turning back.
There, yeah, which was smart.
But I didn't have, I never took pictures or I didn't really create any kind
Right.
of proof around the situation. But um, so, documenting things, even like having a journal where you write stuff down, like this is what we did this day and then this thing happened. A
Yeah.
journal, even a recollection of that just helps you keep your things so clear. And then after the situation, once I was out, I didn't want to bring any attention back to me. I didn't want his attention to go back onto us or our family.
Right.
And but I did want to make the police aware of that this person might be a dangerous individual to somebody else. And so
Yeah.
we have this thing in Canada. I don't know if it's the same in the States where you can open up a file on somebody without having to press charges. And so
Oh,
that's what I
wow.
did. I just opened up a
That's awesome.
just so that it would be on record that if something happened to someone else, that I could be called as a witness
There
or
you go.
support them in the situation. Because it just never feels good that you're pushing this human onto somebody else when
Yeah.
they have
No.
so much undealt with trauma and issues
Uh-huh.
they're never going to deal with because they could, there's lack of interest or it's just too much for them to even dive deeply into those those emotions. But
Right.
in this case, I was able to just open up a file and then walk away from it. And there's been so many times where in the early stages where I just felt so horrible, like about not coming forward about it sooner or sharing with his, the new partner what had happened to me. But I had gone to a woman who treated me, um, and she did some osteo on me, but she also was a bit of an energy healer. And she said that she saw me kind of standing on top of this little tiny pedestal, and like I felt like I was on this podium and I had to do something about it. But she said, "There's the ladder. You can just come off of it. You don't have to be
Oh, that's
there anymore."
beautiful.
And so gave me the permission, helping me give myself permission to just wait until the time was appropriate to share my story.
That's beautiful. And sometimes we just need that permission. We need permission to like, it's okay, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's amazing. Well, you've overcome all kinds of challenges in an abusive relationship. You went from being a single, mom and then building this, empire, this DIY. So tell us a little more about let's get into your matriarch. Let's get into that. Let's so what's the whole matriarch thing? Explain
So
that.
Matriarch is the production company name, but it's also the larger umbrella. So I do my design work, my interior consults, and my renovations for clients under the umbrella of Matriarch, and
Oh,
DIY
that's
Mom, sort of
wonderful.
my personal brand under that Matriarch umbrella. And so I came up with the name Matriarch for the production company because when I think about the difference between the patriarch and the matriarch, I think of it like the patriarch is a triangle and there's only room at the top for one person. But the matriarch is like a circle and we can all be a part of sharing our ideas, our leadership skills, the things that make each one of us unique that I bring into my team. They're all welcome to take a piece of the pie and be feel like they're invested into it. So in a matriarch, there's not this sense that one person has to rise to the top and be in charge of everybody. And I love to um, ask people about their ideas and
You're all about the community and
include people in
contributing.
the process, and so they can take ownership and pride in what they're doing.
Oh,
And
I love that. That's
they're helping me in my journey, but also hopefully they're getting something out of it, whether I'm teaching them something for the first time or, they're teaching me and their bucket is being filled because they are sharing their wisdom with other people. And so that's why I named the company Matriarch. And yes, I
I
love a
love
matriarch.
that. I love the feeling behind it. That's so cool. I like the whole circle thing and involving others. That's beautiful. So obviously, because of what you've, accomplished and whatever, you had to be super creative, right? And I'm sure, like, my show is BS your way. I'm sure you had to do a lot of BSing sometimes where you're like, we're just gonna just go for it and see what happens type of thing. So, um, can you share an example of a time when BSing your way through something actually became the breakthrough you needed?
Sure. I left this out at the start when I was introducing how I became DIY mom. But when I first moved back to Halifax, I had a friend that was in the film industry and he had slept on my couch in Toronto for a couple of months. So he owed me a favor. And he knew that I was looking for work and I didn't have any job prospects. And so he called me and he said, Rebecca, why don't you come in and work for me for the day as a casting assistant? I'll give you $100. I said, sure. I went in to help him cast a commercial. By the end of the day, he said, you're the best casting assistant I've ever had. I'm going to give you $150. And then I met the owners of Egg Studios, which was the film company that eventually hired me. And she asked me, well, what do you want to do like with your life? And I thought, well, maybe I'd like to be a producer. And she said, well, why don't you come back tomorrow? I'll pay you $250 and you can make some calls for a McDonald's commercial for me. So I went back in the next day and she paid me. And then I just thought, I'm going to keep showing up here, even though there's not like something specific that she's asking me to do. But I just kept showing up at the office every day, thinking that there would probably be some kind of mass panic where they didn't have somebody to fill something and I would just fill it. Eventually, over the course of the 2 weeks of me doing that, they just said, why don't we just put you on payroll? And so
Oh my
so
gosh.
I went from having no job to getting paid $1,000 a week, which was huge back then. I mean, this
Very
is 10
good.
years ago. It was
Right.
amazing. It was like I've never made that much money. Um, and then after 3 or 4 months of working at Egg, I was an associate producer. I was learning all this stuff about what it takes to make a commercial and working behind the scenes. And then one day, Mike, one of the other owners walks up to me and goes, "Wait, you didn't go to CFC?" Like he thought I had gone to film school and that I knew this because I had gone to film school. And I was like, "No, like he just kind of got his wires crossed because the guy that had hired me the first day was from CFC. So he thought that must be how I knew because he said, I know her from Toronto. And he's like, what? You're not like a producer? He kind of thought that. And so it was really just this sort of funny situation where I just kept faking it till I make it. Like they would give me a task and a job, and I would just go, okay, yeah. And then I go research it and figure out how to do it. Just do it.
That's so awesome. I love it so much.
And that opened up all these other doors for me. I was on set, I was asking people questions about what they did. What do you do? I was talking to people in marketing. I was talking to the agents, the clients. And I was able to bring that all together when I made my own brand, because as a social media influencer, and when I first started, it was branded content. Now people call us influencers. And you really are all of those things. You're the production company, you're the editor, but you're also the you're the person on camera, you're the talent, you're the script writer, you're the agency behind the artistic concept. And so you really, all of these things that I learned in my work at Egg helped me create this really great package that I was able to sell myself as the brand, as the person, as the face of uh, of whatever um, project that's brought to me, and cut it all together and make this piece that's sellable to the client. So it really all came together full circle.
That's beautiful. I love it. It's it's interesting. It's just like you don't necessarily have to you know, like yeah, going to school is a good thing obviously, but like if you have the capability and you do the research and whatever, experience is the best teacher. And you literally just like, we're going to get experience. Like you probably learned more and faster than you would have in a classroom just by like immersing yourself into the system. And that
Also,
is just awesome.
absolutely. And then that internal panic of like, I need to know what I'm doing, or at least appear that I know what I'm doing. So I was
Right?
kind of research. It's the same thing when it came to a renovation. Whatever house I was doing or designing, I would kind of have this vision of what I wanted it to be. And I didn't know anything about mid-century modern architecture. So I just ordered a bunch of books on Amazon and educated myself about mid-century modern architecture. So I think if you're interested in something and you have a talent and you can follow that talent, that you can really make a winning combination. It's not
Right.
always the passion that's important. It's also knowing what your talent is, because we're often told, telling people, follow your passion, but sometimes your passion and your talent may not be, or maybe your passion is lacking in talent. So really discover
Right.
what the talent is first, and then let that passion grow in your talent.
That's beautiful. I like how you said it that way because like it helps also bring clarity to what you want because many times I mean we can develop new talents obviously but sometimes what we're good at can really expedite what we're passionate about and we need to get to the root of what it is. I'm blanking on the word here of what I want but like when I was first starting out and what what I wanted to have my podcast be about and things like that and
Mhm.
what was my niche? That's the word I wanted. Niche. Yeah, I came to it.
Mhm.
What's my niche? What do I want it to be? What is it that I'm passionate about? And there's several things like obviously improving relationships and also I've always been passionate about positivity and just having a really quality life and that anything's possible type of thing and I'm just like well how do I niche this all down and the talents that I have really help me to eh, to make the niche clearer so to speak if that makes sense
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
yeah
So what drove you to homeschool your kids, or what was that pivotal
so
moment?
when my oldest son, who's now almost 16, we put him in kindergarten and he was doing that and they come home with homework and I hated the whole like, I don't know, taking him to school and picking him up and the homework that we'd have to do. I don't know, it just felt so stressful and so like I don't know. It just you follow this certain line. If you didn't follow this certain line, then they punish you for it. And I also am very much I had a mother who was like, my children, my decisions, and you don't get not your business type of thing, right? So I was raised with a mom like that. So I also felt like that. So when the school is like telling me, like, hey, if you have so many absences or this, then you where you might get fined. And I'm like, and then I spoke up, I'm like, or we could just take our kids out of school. We could just not go to school here. And she's like, or I guess that's that option too. And I'm just like, I don't know. But what really ended up making me decide to homeschool my kids is when my second son was going to be entering kindergarten, they had and just to preface, I am not anti-vaccine. I'm not, but I don't like being told what I have to put in my kids and the timing that they have to put in. I'm not okay with that. So that became a mandate, and you had to have all these certain vaccines before they even entered school and all this stuff. I don't know if they have that in Canada, but we have it here in the States, and I'm not a fan of, being told, because I do have a family history where I have relatives who were badly affected by certain vaccines. So I'm very careful. And,
Mhm.
and I'm also huge into health. So I know that, these things can happen. Um, so I just, wasn't all on board with that. And because they did end up moving it into law, and my son could not go to school without having these vaccines, then I was just like, okay, I guess I'm homeschooling. That's my deciding factor. I was considering anyway, but now we're doing it. And I've been doing
Yeah.
the first couple of years were really, really hard. But now that I'm in it, and I'm with a homeschool charter school, and I love it so much, they pay for all the curriculum. My kids do all their extracurricular activities. I get to do things the way I want, use the curriculum I want, and it's just fantastic. So I'm
Oh, that's
glad that happened.
yeah. I have friends in Cape Breton that homeschool and they live on a farm, and she just says it's great because her kids can get all their work done in the morning and then they can go out and do things around the farm. Or I think her oldest is now working with his father on in construction. So
Oh, that's
you know,
wonderful.
getting all that and then also when you have neurodivergent children or kids that just learn differently,
Yeah,
they don't often thrive in the school system. So
it's
yeah, I get
true.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my fifth, I have six kids. My fifth child, he actually does go to public school because he has Down syndrome, and so he goes to special ed because he really need because either it because it's hard. It was hard to get once he turned a certain age. It was hard to get regular therapy and OT because like he needs all these services, and they
Mhm.
used to come to my house, but once he reaches a certain age, they you have to go outsourcing, and so he gets all of that at school, so it's nice for him. Plus, he gets to hang with his peers, which I think is really good for his growth
Yeah.
and development. So
Yeah.
for him, and they don't require, special needs kids to do the whole vaccine thing. You can sign a paper saying nope. So, so
My
he,
mom did work for with Team Possible. It's a group here in Nova Scotia of Down syndrome kids, and they do dance performances. And my mom did
oh, that's
choreography for them, and she just like they used to do all these projections on the stage while they were dancing. And hey, 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 um, hey, girls, all right, girlies, girls. Okay, okay. And she would make their angel costumes, and they would
oh, how cute.
extended arms, and the projections would be all over them, and they just loved it. They had so much fun, and they obviously gave so much to my mom too, just filled her with so much joy. And they're just so positive and sweet spirits.
That's so beautiful. I love it. Yes, they are. They are so positive. Like they are just happy all the time. I mean, they have when they get mad, right? But they overcome it really fast. And they're just such a joy to have. He's
Yeah.
a little snuggly boy.
Yeah. How old is he now?
He's going to be 7 in May. Yeah.
Oh.
So he doesn't look it. He looks like he's like 3 or 4 years old because they grow very slow. And
Oh.
Milton especially has an unnormal, how do I say this? Unnormal growth rate, even for a Downs kid. So he's always had an issue gaining weight. That's been one of his things that's been a huge struggle, but we're getting through it. So anyway, well,
Wow. 6 kids. That's a lot.
yes. Well, I know I'm sure you got other things you got to get to, and I do too. I'd like to wrap this up, but we want to ask one more question. So overcoming and being able to get through stuff, um, what would be the what is your best thing that you or your greatest life lesson or whatever you want to share for encouragement for other people Go.
Okay, so what is my biggest life lesson to encourage other people?
Yeah. What is, I'll get my words out. What is your best advice? There's my word, mother brain.
To encourage people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your best advice.
I just think that everything that has happened to you or every life experience that you have is just so bankable. And over the last month, I spent time in Africa working with Hope of Africa and empowering the students over there to do some of the things that I do, like teaching them film production and teaching them editing and storytelling. And everything in my life up to this point has really led me to where I am. And so I can be grateful for every experience, whether it was good or bad. And it just truly just develops your character, and makes you a much more interesting person. And we all have a story to share. We all have a very specific voice that we need to discover and that can be a positive impact in the world and to our communities. And so I just encourage everyone to discover what that story is and to reflect through your life and your experiences and and write down those self-reflections so that we can grow from them, learn from them, understand where your gifts and your talents lie so that you can share those with the world and with your family and with your community. um, so I just, yeah, I would just encourage everybody um, to be bold and brave and put themselves out there. Maybe that means reaching out to a new community or saying hi to your neighbors or getting involved in your child's after school programs or volunteering, but just having a well balanced life that gives back in some way and is not just always thinking about you and keeping your world small, but our worlds can become so much bigger if we just give more of ourselves. And so yeah, that's what I would say.
No, I love that. Thank you. I like how you said, um, I think that's something that everybody needs to hear, including me, is like, don't keep your world small. It can be so much bigger. And we do. And I think when we step outside of ourselves and we take time to like serve our communities or serve other people, it helps, it heals us too, especially when we're going through hard times. I think serving can be a good healer on both ends.
Yeah, when you are dealing with other people's chaos day in and day out, there's no time to think about your own.
No,
So
so true.
yeah, it can really be a gift.
It
And I know when I was in Africa, every day was just, you didn't know what was going to happen next. And there was just so much uncertainty. And I think my ADHD brain just thrives in that sort of uncertainty in this wild, chaotic situation. And
right.
there was no time to think about the drama back home or the things that I was, my own personal grievances or difficulties because I was dealing with such things that were so much bigger and more severe than anything I'd ever
Yeah.
gone through in my personal life. So, yeah, just always finding the way to make yourself feel a little bit smaller and look at the big picture.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, Rebekah. I've really enjoyed having you. And
Thanks for
I hope
having
to
me
have
too.
you again. That was
Yeah.
so much fun. And
Um,
I can't wait to like see more of the series. I started
Thank you for
watching.
following along and watching it. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. And if you're hearing me on the Bullshitting Your Way Through Life podcast for the first time, then find me on Instagram and let's connect because I love making new connections with people out there,
Yes, yes, yes. So
especially our
definitely.
American friends.
Yay! I'm excited. I'll definitely find you on it. Also, please email me all of the links that you want shared so I can put them in my show notes so people can
Yes,
easily find you. So
absolutely.
like
I will
your
do that.
YouTube channel, which I'm sure I could link myself, but if you have all the links, just like link them up, whatever you want on there, and I will slap them on my show notes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. It's been a joy to have you. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you. And best of luck with all your little ones and this day-to-day life. You're killing
Yes.
it.
Thank you. Hey, you too. I'm gonna follow in your example.
Thanks, Buffy.
All right, take care. Bye.